So when you think about saving for retirement, your mind probably jumps straight to things like a 401k or an IRA, right? But in the world of high-level executive pay, there's a whole different kind of tool, one that's way more flexible, but also carries a lot more risk. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on non-qualified retirement plans, both the promise and the peril.
To really get a handle on how these things work, let's start with a super simple story. Picture this. A 42-year-old guy decides, okay, it's time to get serious about the future. He opens a new savings account, and every single month, he puts in $150. Vows not to touch it till he's 65. Sounds like a totally responsible retirement plan, doesn't it? Well, the simple question of whether his plan is qualified is actually the key to unlocking this entire concept.
And to get to the answer, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with that simple savings plan. Then we'll define what non-qualified actually means. We'll look at why these are a go-to tool for attracting top talent, break down the whole pay-me-later idea, and finally, we'll ask the biggest question of all. Is it a real asset, or is it just a promise?
All right, so let's get back to our guy, the dedicated saver. Why isn't his plan considered qualified?
Well, the short answer is nope. His plan, for all his good intentions, is not qualified. And the reason is actually pretty straightforward. It just doesn't meet the super specific rules the federal government has laid out. And what that means for him is there's no special tax break, the money he puts in and the interest it earns both get taxed every single year.
Okay, so we see what a non-qualified plan looks like in its most basic form. But now, let's see how this idea gets applied in the corporate world, where things get a lot more interesting.
So here's the official breakdown. A non-qualified retirement plan is basically any plan that is intentionally set up so it does not meet the strict government rules. You'll hear terms like the Internal Revenue Code or ERISA thrown around. By choosing not to follow those specific rules, the plan gives up all those nice tax benefits that qualified plans like your 401k get to enjoy. Now, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, if these plans don't get the same tax breaks, why would any company bother using them? And that is a great question. The answer is all about who they're for and what they're trying to do. The number one thing to understand here is that these plans are exclusive. We're not talking about something for the entire company. No. This is a very targeted benefit built specifically for the top tier, highly paid employees, key execs, directors, and the top officers of the firm. It's for the company's MVPs.
So what's the real motivation for the company?
It all boils down to one thing: attracting and keeping their key people. You'll sometimes hear these called golden handcuffs. The whole idea is to create a compensation package that's so attractive that top talent not only wants to come work for you, but they have a massive financial reason to stick around for the long haul.
Let's make this crystal clear by putting it right next to a 401k. You know how a 401k is for pretty much all eligible employees and has to follow strict government rules? Well, a non-qualified plan is the opposite. It's only for a select few, and it has a much more flexible design. But here's the real kicker for the employer. With a 401k, they can deduct their contributions right away. With a non-qualified plan, they don't get that tax deduction until the employee actually gets the money, which could be years and years from now.
So how does this whole pay-me-later idea actually work in practice? Well, it's typically done through something called a deferred compensation plan.
The process itself is pretty logical. First, the executive does their job, right? Provides their services. Second, instead of taking all their pay right now, they agree to push back or postpone a chunk of it. Third, that postponed payment gets delivered down the road, usually when they retire. And now for step 4, which is the real prize for the employee, they only pay taxes on that money when they get it, not in the year they earned it. That can potentially mean a much lower tax bill.
Okay, so this is all sounding like a fantastic deal for the executive, but this is where we get to the peril part of our title. There is a fundamental risk baked into this, and it all comes down to one absolutely critical distinction.
See, these plans can be either funded or unfunded. And believe me, that difference changes everything. A funded plan is secure. The company actually puts the assets aside in a trust or an escrow account just for that employee. The money's there, it's safe. But most of these plans are unfunded, and what that means is that there are no specific assets set aside at all. The employee is relying completely on the company's unsecured promise to pay them in the future. It's basically an IOU. And why would a company do this? It helps their cash flow, and the money they promised is still theirs to use until it's paid out.
And that leaves us right here with the core dilemma. A non-qualified plan can be an incredible tool to reward top talent with the promise of a massive future payout. But for that executive,
It is a huge gamble. Is an unsecured promise from your employer, just an IOU, enough to bet a piece of your retirement on? That's the billion-dollar question at the heart of every single one of these plans.